For almost 10 years, thousands of people in Southern Ontario have woken up to the dulcet voice of John Moore on Newstalk 1010 radio. But recently, and for several weeks, that voice was absent. And as a regular listener, I can tell you, we didn't know why. It was only after John returned to the airwaves that he gave his listeners the explanation.
Without getting too Oprah on you, I'll tell you, it's been a journey. That would be the word Oprah would use. Earlier in the year, I began experiencing bouts of anxiety, and they were the result of some predictable things. It's called situational, right? It's sometimes people are overcome with anxiety or suffer from depression, and it can't really be linked to the fact that maybe, you've lost somebody in your life. In this case, it was years of on-the-job stress, but there was also, I think the trigger for me was I went to visit with my dad, who's been in declining health for some time.
And we are delighted to welcome John Moore, Newstalk 1010 morning show host, back to TVO for more. It's great to have you in that chair.
Nice to see you. Nice to be here.
How long have you been on the air in total through your whole career?
About 32, 33 years.
Have you ever, until this past year, experienced what you described as paralyzing anxiety while on the air?
No, but I have admitted through my career I get anxious, but in a totally manageable and predictable way about pretty well every interview. And and actually, being here right now with the shoe on the other foot is a little weird. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it had never been like that before. And it was something that was very much cumulative. And now, as I've explored with so many people during the time I had off and since then, it's a very common thing to just have it gradually. It's like a loud noise in the background that starts soft and gets louder and louder and louder and suddenly is intolerable.
How and when did you first notice that happening?
I think it's something you ignore in a job like this for a long time. So it's only in reflecting upon it now I began to realize that I was starting to have episodes of anxiety. Part of it, I think, was to do with the fact that Toronto market's probably becoming a lot more competitive, so we were working harder. I was getting up earlier. We were being more aggressive in how we were orchestrating the show, the guests we were chasing. So that started to be an additional pressure. And also, you have to understand the hours are ridiculous. And I've been doing mornings, not a morning show, but mornings since I started in the business.
So you get up at what time?
2:30.
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah.
That is just unnatural.
It's ridiculous. 4 o'clock would be getting up early. 2:30 is just, I called it the crack of stupid in a tweet when I said I was stepping away from it for a while.
When you began to understand what was actually happening to you, did you have any sense about why it was happening?
No, and as I mentioned, as you heard in the audio clip there, I think for a lot of people there's a trigger. You're dealing with this, you think it's something you should tolerate, it starts to get a little worse, but you still think the expression people always use is like man up, or everybody has stress, just plow through. The big trigger was my dad had been getting sicker and sicker, and I think that's going to be distressing anyway if it's a parent, but also you reflect with Alzheimer's, which my dad has, what lies ahead for me, what lies ahead for the two of us together. I went to visit him, he lives in Ottawa, and the light had really just gone out. And that was quite devastating. I mean, you're ready for it, but when it happens, it's devastating because you realize all those stories are gone, all that communication is gone, and it's just, so that really, by the time I came back from that, things started to ramp up. And I guess I probably said, well, this must be about Dad. This can't be about work and Dad. And it was about everything.
When you came back on the air, you mentioned that the anxiety manifested itself because for the first time ever, you felt like walking out of your show while you were doing it.
Yeah.
What an odd feeling that must have been, eh?
Well, I always say about this show, it's like getting into a moving car. And maybe it's more like a speeding bullet train, I'm not sure. Once you're on it, you feel like you're trapped in it, if things aren't going well. So I would be sitting there and I'd realize I'd be doing an interview or animating a roundtable, because I do 7:45, 8:45, we have the roundtables with all of our pundits, much like you have on the show. And I wasn't even listening to what people were saying. And I guess that's fight or flight. I thought, I could get up and walk out right now. And of course, if I did, it would have been an absolute scene. It would have been the end of my career. So I would just nurse myself to the end of the show and then figure, how am I going to get back to this at 5:30 tomorrow morning?
How many hours do you do every morning?
On the air, it's from 5:30 to 9. But then there's the prep, obviously. Up at 2:30, start the prep. And it never really ends. I'm going back and forth with my producer and other people and newsmakers all through the day. And the problem, of course, is, and one of the reasons you have to get up so early, is I can't prepare the day before. The news when I go to bed at 9 is not going to be the news when I wake up at 2:30. So you're just in this constant state of updating and wondering and trying to make bets. And so that, again, that's part. Fred Allen called radio the treadmill to oblivion, which I absolutely love, because you do the show and the next day what the audience is, okay, do something else.
Mm-hmm. So 3.5 hours you're sitting there behind a microphone.
Yep.
Now, admittedly, some commercial breaks in there, but
Sure.
still, 3.5 hours daily behind a mic, and at times you want to get up and walk out. How did you not? Because that's a long time to sit behind a microphone.
Yeah. I'm also very practical, in spite of the fact that I was having a panic attack. I've always been able to project myself forward of the consequences of whatever I might do. So in that case, it really, I don't know what their reaction would have been. The company's reaction to how things did unfold was amazing, and we can talk about that. But if I'd just gotten up and walked out, I think the listeners would have thought I was crazy. And somebody else would have been hauled in to substitute on the show, and it would have been a bit more drama than people in my family are into.
The people you work with, did they have any sense that something was amiss?
I'd been talking to my boss about feeling anxious, and he was trying to come up with ways to mitigate that.
Is this Mike Ben-Dixon?
Mike Ben-Dixon, yeah. But also my producer was, I think, also on a similar trajectory, not half as serious as what I was going through, but something I've learned is emotions are contagious, and anxiety is contagious. And the two of us working together were probably, both of us at times, when you're doing radio, you're making these fly decisions, right? Or decisions on the fly. And then we would make a decision, and then both of us think maybe we've made the wrong decision. And then that becomes anxiety provoking, and that becomes paralyzing as well.
I can tell you, as I mentioned, as a regular listener, you conveyed no sense that anything was amiss. And I don't know how you did that. Do you know how you did that?
I used to be an actor. So, I used to get stage fright, never anything that serious. And when you asked why I didn't walk out of the studio when I was an actor, I always knew if I didn't push through the stage fright and go on stage, that would be the end. Once you give in to that level of anxiety, you're through. So I just continued to, I guess, act the part of the forever calm host. But I can tell you some people did notice. After I left, Dave Agar, legendary news broadcaster, formerly on our show, I had lunch with him, and he said, I could tell there was something wrong. You were being rude to people. And some of my interviews were more hard-hitting than they had been in the past. Or I had much less patience with some of the guests. So I guess people who knew me and knew my on-air persona or personality, that's not really much of a fake there, it's me, knew that there was something going amiss.
See, additional rudeness for some of the hosts on your station would not be an indication of anything other than everything's typical.
Exactly, but I'm forever the gentleman.
Yes, you are.
Civility has always been the hallmark of the show. So if
yes,
I started picking fights with people, it's because something was wrong.
Well, you mentioned this on the air, so I'm not telling tales out of school here, but you talked to a former Newstalk 1010 employee who happens to be the mayor of Toronto today.
Yes.
How did that conversation go?
John has always been, and I think people who know John, he's a good friend to people. And he's forever attentive to, people when things aren't going well. In particular, when something goes wrong, John's often at the home. He'll show up at a wake. In my case, I'm trying to remember the timeline, but I'm pretty sure it's after he began to notice I was absent. And so he texted me, and we ended up talking on the phone. He actually called me from the set of a TV show 5 minutes before going on the air. And he said, I used to run a network of radio stations. If one of my morning men felt like this and asked me for a month off, I'd give it to them. So go in and ask for a month off, and I did.
When he suggested that was the approach you should take, what went through your head?
I thought from a practical perspective, it was a great idea. From the perspective of somebody in radio, where we don't even take more than 2 weeks off at a time, where if you disappear in a couple of weeks, people forget you exist, where you're not really supposed to, and again, this is a theme we'll explore, I'm sure, show weakness. I thought, first of all, they wouldn't say yes, and second of all, this would be the end. If you're going to take a month off, we're done.
Who owns your radio station?
Bell Media. Bell Let's Talk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this was the moment where the rubber really does hit the road, whether or not they're going to not just talk the talk, but walk the walk.
Yeah.
So you walk into...
I actually met my boss at a pub. We had a very nice meat-free burger together. And he said, what do you want to do? Mike Ben-Dixon again. And I said, I'd like a month off. And he said, fine. And that was it. And then it was just, I went home. I didn't even go to the office. It was paperwork. And immediately after that meeting, actually, I took off to a favorite retreat, a favorite vacation spot for a couple of days, which was both a blessing and a curse. And then when I came back, I went about the business of having a month off and trying to figure my way back.
Okay, we got to figure out. So how long were you off the air in total?
In total, it was 6 weeks. The official leave, once we'd gone through the first period of me saying I don't feel like working right now, the official time off was 1 month.
And what did you do during that time off?
Important to say that one of the things I did was I started seeing a therapist. And that was, to use the Oprah word again, an interesting journey.
First time ever?
First time ever, yeah. I'd considered it in the past, but I've never really, this was anxiety, and it was situational anxiety. I've never been prone to depression. I've certainly thought, gee, it'd be fun to figure out a few things and maybe sit around and talk about my mother for a while. This psychologist, when she started explaining her method, and it was really only in our third meeting, my initial reaction was, this is ridiculous. Because it was essentially, we're going to rewire your brain to think positively. I want you to talk about gratitude. Every morning, 5 things you're grateful for. Every afternoon, 5 things you're grateful for. And for me, that just sounded like I was going to an ashram in California. Amazingly, it works. And we did not sit around for session after session and talk about my mother. And as a matter of fact, during a session shortly after I went back to work, she said, how do you feel? I said, I feel great. I said, I don't even know if I need to see you again. She said, well, let's put it on an as-need basis. And I said, okay, you mean we're not going to spend 3 years me paying your mortgage and talking about my family? That's incredible. But that's how it unfolded.
Your dad's condition obviously isn't better.
No.
So how have you... What coping skills were you given to try to deal with the reality that your father is going to deteriorate and deteriorate and then eventually leave this world? Well,
that's one of the many stressors in my life, but I think for a lot of people to lose your parent is a biggie. This therapist and all the reading I've been doing, and I took up meditation and all kinds of other things, it's the one thing you realize is, first of all, you do not have control over some things. So you can be sad about them, you can be anxious about them, but there's no use prompting it to the next level or squaring your level of anxiety. Another aspect is, for me anyway, and I feel like I'm the best possible example if somebody got into trouble and figured his way out. I've realized for me, anxiety is entirely manufactured. It's a byproduct in the body based on irrational thinking. And so during the time I was off, I got very good. My therapist would say, what do you feel anxious about? And we'd talk about that. And some days I'd be in the car and I'd be anxious and I'd think, this is about nothing. This is just background anxiety for no reason. And you can honestly just purge it from yourself through, positive thinking, through acknowledging that the anxiety is for nothing. Now, the anxiety for my dad and the sadness for my dad is very much there, but that's a very real thing.
I do wonder, though, that the John Moore of, say, 5 years ago, how he would have reacted to what the John Moore of today is doing in order to feel better. How would you have regarded this path that you're on back then?
I don't think I could have imagined I'd ever get to the point where I'd need it, where I would feel that I needed to step away from everything. And I think in many ways it's almost like a logarithm or whatever. I mean, this is the accumulated stress of 32 years on the radio, of never having a break, of starting to work at 18, and I've never been without a job, and they've always been very demanding jobs. So I guess I was not just stoic, because I'd never experienced that level of anxiety being on the air. I would honestly wake up when I first started the show at 2:30 and think, this is going to be great. And I feel like that again. That's the great thing. But it took a complete change in lifestyle and thinking, and I just don't think 5 years ago I could have imagined it ever would have happened.
There are any number of different approaches you could have taken to returning to the airwaves. And the approach you took was to just be very open and transparent about, here's what happened to me, I'm going to spend a few minutes here telling you all about it, and then we're going to go on. Why did you choose to go that way?
It's interesting how many people have said, you could have just blamed this on your dad and said he needed some time off, or they've used the word brave. There are 2 reasons why I did it.
Well, you could have said nothing.
I could have said nothing.
Could have said, I just went for a long vacation.
But that's a violation of what radio is really all about, which is it is a very intimate medium. You are in these people's ears. You're in their home, you're in their car, you're at their office, you're on their headset, on the GO train, whatever. They expect transparency and honesty, and they can tell when it's not there. The other reason was I thought it was critically important because of the time off. I met with an awful lot of people, and I did lunches, and people emailed me, And the number of people I met who are coping with depression and anxiety, I would say, is a crisis. And just horrible stories of people who have not been able to make the difference so far. There was a corporate CEO who said he's been on medication for years. There was a police officer who said he thought about killing himself. There was a mom who said she cries outside of the daycare when she's there to pick up her daughter because she doesn't know how she's going to get through the evening and look after her daughter and then go back to work the next day. There are so many people. And then I've heard from people, for example, I got a text just last week from someone who said, how did you know you needed to leave work? Because I think I'm there now. So if I can make a difference by talking about it, if we can help with the Bell Let's Talk stigma thing, because I spent a lot of time talking to a guy I think you know, Michael Landsberg.
I've only known him since 1978.
Yeah, and his hashtag is sick, not weak. And he talks a lot about the stigma because there is a fear that people will look at you and think you're broken. And mental illness isn't like anything else because they look in your eyes and they hope you're doing all right. And I will say, it's funny, when I got back, everyone said, I'm so happy to see you. And after the weeks went by, quite recently, about the last 10 days, the way people say, how are you, it sort of has an ellipse at the end. It's like, are you still doing okay? So I think for everybody, there's that fear. If you, in order to bring it out and do something about it, you got to admit to people that that's happened. And even people who have issues like this, I think, still worry about being seen as lesser or broken or harmed in some way.
There is something, though, about the way, and maybe it's an on-air thing, because Michael, who I've known for 40 years, as I said, was expert at not conveying any indication that anything was amiss. And I remember talking to him about it. I said, I've known you since we were kids. We went to university together. I had no clue that you were going through what you were going through.
Yeah.
But I guess that's part of it, right? You feel you got to fake it to everybody?
You become a great dissembler, I think. And even, Michael will admit, he and I would go back and forth on text, and he came up with this thing that I'm sure he talks to other people about called the sick dex. And he would say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling today? And he would check in with me every day, which was amazing. But he'll post on Twitter having a bad couple of days. And that, so, clearly, he gets it out there that he goes through these troughs and great heights, but it's still part of his day-to-day life. But yeah, I don't think his listeners have any idea.
Once you got back on the air, that first day back, how was that?
Well, I was asked what's making you anxious in the days before I went back. I said, what's making me anxious is that I might be anxious when I get there. I was really somewhat terrified because I thought, what if I walk in the doors and sit down with my producer and it just starts all over again? And somehow it was completely absent and remains so. And so it was exhilarating to get back on the air because it was proof to me that I'm sure there'll be days and there'll be events that will trigger some level of anxiety. But clearly I was able to flip a switch and do something differently and think differently. So
you have had no anxiety since you've been back on the air?
No.
Which is a few weeks
Aside
now.
from, if I'm going in the air with the deputy premier and I have to give her the grill about health spending, I worry about it, but I worry about it like any healthy interviewer like you would.
Got it.
Yeah.
What are you doing differently now, off mic, in the rest of your life that is contributing to your improved mental health?
Well, at the risk of plummeting stock values, get off Twitter. I'm still on Twitter as an observer. I tweet, but mostly about my puppy, about good things, about how I love life in Toronto, about the Raptors, whatever. I do not engage in any kind of political exchange, and I'll go through the feed. On Saturday morning, it's all these suspects, depends on who you follow naturally, but for me, all these suspects, and I won't identify any of them, but they're just carping and whining and yelling and screaming, and it's useless. And the text board, imagine if you were live and you had a text board in front of you from people who were watching you on TV at the time saying, you're an idiot, you don't know anything, what a jerk, what a softball interview. I've learned to ignore that as well because it just doesn't matter. Well,
yours is I think I can say that yours is a kind of a conservative talk radio station.
It is.
And you're one of the
not the most conservative person.
Exactly. You're sort of a more progressive voice.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing they put you on the air, actually, in a conservative talk radio station. So you would be, most of your listeners are conservative and you're not, so you would really be getting the incoming on this on a regular basis, I assume.
And I think my reputation has always been that I'm extremely fair, and I try to rise above the politics of it all. Obviously, when it comes to policy, I have my views, but I don't shill or defend for anyone. And I think most of the listeners know that. But there are certain politicians, if you even mention their name, all of a sudden people think you've just slammed them and why are you such an idiot.
Those of us in daily journalism, and I found this very interesting, in your return to the airwaves, you mentioned how you're going to do something different now going forward. And we want to play a little snippet of that, and then we'll come back and chat,
All right.
okay? Sheldon, if you would, the clip.
I've resolved to purge negativity from my life. We are surrounded by it. 5 minutes on Twitter is like taking a bath in pettiness and anger. And you don't have to become Mary Poppins, but every step away from being around negative people, negative ideas, people who are vindictive, angry, vengeful, and mean is a step closer to a better life.
So much of what we do, though, in the daily racket that we're in, involves focusing on the negative in hopes of shining a light on it in a constructive way so that it then becomes something positive in the world.
Yeah.
So how do you do that and that at the same time?
Maybe I'm partitioning it too much, but some of my listeners mistook me saying that I was going to get away from negativity for, well, you're not going to criticize anybody anymore. You're not going to say that you don't agree with Doug Ford's policy on this or that you think city council's wrong on that. And that's not it. Negativity is just salting in the insults and the anger and the vituperativeness, and that is something I've mostly set aside. I'll occasionally say something on the air that I regret, but I'm just trying to be a more generally positive person. And you can emphasize that in your life as well. And one of the crazy things for me in the month off and now in the time that I've been back is I had to let go of the idea that I must be doing something important at all times. And there really is, I think it's the Norwegians will, sit in a chair and stare into a field for an hour. And the thing is, do not feel guilty about that. There is nothing wrong with that. You do not have to go and write a novel.
You're a Protestant, aren't you, John?
Yes.
So you've got that Protestant work ethic.
I do, actually. And that is a serious thing in my life. I'm not a practicing religious person, but I was very much raised by British people who believed, or British-style people, who believed in the work ethic. And that's part of the formula, I think, for a lot of people, why they keep on reporting to work, why they never tell their partner that they're having trouble. It's that stoicism.
How do you know whether the improved mental health that you are currently experiencing will persist?
I don't, but I believe it will because, again, to come back to, it was not chemical, it's situational. So I've changed my situation. And on days where I begin to not necessarily experience anxiety, but where I'm tensing up or whatever, I think, okay, what have I reverted to? What patterns or what things in the office place are bothering me? And you have to address them head on.
Any meds involved in this?
Any what?
Meds. Are you taking meds?
No. No, and I asked myself what I would do if I got to that. That was when I first started the month off. I was feeling better every day, but I thought, and I went to see a doctor because you have to in order to get disability leave. He said, come back and see me in a month, and if you're still here, you might have to consider meds. I have a thing, though, about all kinds of medication. I try to stay off, and I have successfully, because my first trench, if that becomes a necessity, is to change everything that made it a necessity.
John, on behalf of the listeners, I want to say, number one, how happy we are you're back on the air.
Thank you.
But number two, how happy we are that you are happier.
Yes.
So well done.
Well, and it's contagious, so let's try and spread it around.
Amen to that. That's John Moore. You know him from his morning show on Newstalk 1010. Yes, he is Moore in the Morning. Great to see you again here at TVO.
Thank you.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.